So lo and behold, look at what appeared in the back of my truck. Now, it's still bolted together, and I'm going to try and take it off that way, bolt it together, and get it off, because I'd like to keep it bolted together to test fit it in the engine. I'm sorry, into the frame. But anyways, there it is, back finally. This is late Friday afternoon. What I'm going to do is just take the forklift truck, get it out of my truck, and then possibly maybe come in tomorrow and start setting it up for test fit. I'm not going to say it's going to be up towards the chassis tomorrow, test fitted, but it's going to be prepped for me to get it up. I wanted to get it rigged so it was up in the air first before I turned the camera on. Just I also need to know to make sure that the forklift would pick it up. I wasn't really sure of that. Okay, so there it is in all its glory. Engine looks pretty small compared to the transmission one. There's nothing on it, no head, no manifold, no turbocharger, no compressor, no heat pump. But anyways, there it is. Okay, this is right after I took it off of the truck, and I just kind of want to walk around it. What I did is measured from that motor mount where those bolts are to the end of the universal, where the universal would connect up. It's 6'6". So just for references to where that would be, I've laid that tape out at approximately 6'6". And that's where the end of the universal is going to fall. Now, let me get another measurement on it and just kind of show you where the shifter would fall in relationship to the cab. So this is a shift plate, and it isn't that far forward of the universal, but let me get a tape measure and kind of reference that. I'll bring it back. So I don't know whether you can see that, but so that shifter is going to be about 20 inches forward of the end of the universal, and we're just taking rough measurements right now. I like to do this before I leave, and just so it's kind of in the back of my mind. So 20 inches is going to be 23 inches or 1'11" forward of those rear mounts. These are the cab mount brackets. So let's walk over to the cab and I'll shut you off and bring you back on. Okay, here we are the next morning, and as I had said, the forklift lowered overnight, so it came down on that board. But anyways, what I'm gonna do, I'm probably gonna switch this around and have the forklift come in this way. And the only reason I'm gonna be doing that is so that I can set it directly in front of the frame, and that way I can move it straight back without having to turn it. But let me see what I've got going and how it sets up. I'll bring you back. What I'm going to do while this camera is light shifting, I'm going to just shoot some shots of it as I progress. So I just took it off of the pallet, got half of it on the gantry crane and half of it on the engine hoist. I kind of figured that I'd be able to control it that way better. What I'm probably going to do now though is set it down for a minute and shorten that chain up in the front over the engine so that I can get a higher lift on it. And there it is with the chain shortened up. And here it is, kind of lined up with the frame, ready to set. Now, I don't think I'm going to do this until Monday, but going to take a couple of more measurements and stuff like that and see what's going on. Let me run some things by you. Again, it's Saturday. I'm in here. I just got this thing turned around so that it is parallel with the frame rails, ready to be picked up and set in there, but I'm not going to do it today. I just wanted to kind of look at it, explore some options before I get the cart in front of the horse again and start putting it in there without at least trying to think about some things first. So one of the things that I did is I measured from this, the bottom of that front engine mount to the bottom of the pan, and it's about 10 inches. So I've got 10 inches of clearance. So as you can see, what I was concerned about is that cross member, that existing cross member, which probably is never going to be used. So 10 inches from that, it does not interfere with that cross member. I mean, that cross member, the center of that cross member, now it's tapered down on both sides, but the center of that cross member is probably a good 12 inches. And let's we'll go get a level and set across it, and I'll show you what it is exactly. Okay, so just bear with me a second here. I'm trying to set this gimbal up and hold it in the thing so that I have both hands, and maybe I'm wrong here. There's kind of level now, it's only 6 inches, but let me go back over and see. It looked like that cross member is going to have to come out anyway, because it's approximately 32 inches from the center of that cross member to the pad on that, and 32 inches is there. So that cross member does have to come out. Okay, so that's the first thing I've got to do before I even set that up in there. Now, I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to use that front mount. I've got to get that cross member out of there, so I need to do that before I even try to set it in there. Okay, this is directly after I just shut you off. I was going to show you something else too. Let me try and show you the bottom of the transmission. It's not up that high, but there is no mounting brackets on the bottom of the transmission. What there is, however, is on the top of this transmission, and as you can see, I've got a die on it because I wanted to chase some threads, and I just wanted to make sure. This is a transmission, the Eaton Fuller transmission, that has the metric bolts on it. So these are metric bolts, and what they appear to be is it looks like the transmission was suspended from a mount onto these things. So what I'm probably going to be looking at for the rear transmission mount is suspending it from those. So I will have to come up with a bracket that can go between those two bolts and be suspended in there, which isn't a problem. Now the other thing that I was kind of looking at is these existing mounts that were on here, I might have to modify, because if I ran something up in here, as you can, let me get to the front of it. As you can see, this is where the starter bolts up, and it is extremely close to the starter. So something couldn't go straight up. Now, granted, it can come up at an angle and then flatten out here and be bolted down that way. So that's the other thing that I'm going to be looking at, is if I can utilize these existing motor mount brackets. And that's kind of what they are, is a rear motor mount bracket. So we're going to have front mount, kind of, let's call it a rear motor mount, but it's actually kind of perpendicular with a flywheel. And then we need to get something back here to support the rear of the transmission, because that transmission is heavy, and weighted off of that. So that bracket, that existing bracket, 32 inches, came about in here. So that's got to come out. It would probably have to come out anyways, because it would probably interfere, because it tapers up on the sides. It would interfere with the starter. So that bracket's got to come out. Definitely got to come out before I even get it test fitted in there. I just wanted to mention one thing. This bracket that has to come out is riveted in. And the bracket, part of the bracket is actually, the steering box fits over this part of the bracket, and that has a bolt. There's a bolt up here, but the two lower ones are rivets. Now, the bracket also serves as the front bolt goes through the spring shackle, and then there's two rivets on it. So part of the bracket core, the same thing with the spring shackle happens over there. So part of that bracket that's on the frame is going to have to stay, and it's really hard to get them rivets off of there. So what I'm going to do is just lop it off out here with a cutting torch, and then try and tweak it. Maybe try and grind the rivets off and see if I can pop them out or whatever, but we'll have to kind of play this thing by ear as we do it. frame rails before I cut this out, just to make sure that that frame didn't spring at all before I go put. I got it part way off. It just hung up. It's hard to get in here because of that the steering box. Your handheld, no gimbal. What I want to do is, I'm probably done for the day. I want to be able to get in here, get a long sleeve shirt on and stuff like that. Get in here and make some precise cuts. Maybe, yeah, that's what I'll do. You know, I'll probably actually set up a little chair in here or something just so that I'm steady and can cut a straight line along that frame and get most of that bracket out of there. And then the same way with that thing. I don't want to rush things, and I know what I've got to do now, so I want to be able to set it up in a good position. Okay, so this is the next day. What I did is I put a stand in here just to steady something that I could slide my arm along as I cut along and steady it. I don't want to cut into the frame at all. I just want to cut that excess material off of there. So, also got some long sleeves on, just so that I don't get that jerky motion when stuff slides up and hits me in the arm. Burns a little bit. I kind of figured that I cut the main part of that other support off, and what I'm going to do is just trim it up now. So I kind of figured I'd bring you in, let you see me doing it. Okay, what I'm going to do is kind of leave it like that for now. What I'm going to do is clean this stuff up. I'll clean up the slag and stuff out of there. Maybe even get a shop vac and vacuum it up. What I'm going to do is try and pull the engine in here and just kind of set it in place and take a look at it. Take a look at where supports are going to fall in relationship to those pieces that I just cut out. If they're going to fall over them, then I'll deal with that. If they're not going to fall over them, then I'll deal with how I'm going to clean it up. Now, on this side, and you can't really see it, I kind of nicked the frame a little bit. So I'm going to deal with that. I'll probably just get something to put in there, maybe a piece of metal to bolt over it so that it Not that it's probably weakened it at all, it just caught the very edge of the frame a little bit. But I'd rather be safe. Okay, so I started moving it in a little bit. Now this is as far as I've got it. I haven't rolled it over the thing. You're going to be back a ways because I don't want the tripod in the way of the gantry frame when it rolls back. So here we go. Here's my floors again. Okay, so this is going to be the after shot. You've just seen the video of me rolling it back in and getting it kind of test fitted into here. Now, there is a couple of issues, and this is why I love to do stuff like this, is just get it over in here and then let me go home and I'll think about it overnight. But there's going to be a couple of issues that I see right away. The front support for this is going to be way too high for the engine. When I say way too high, I'll explain it here in a minute. I need to get it down because as you heard earlier in this video, I'm going to be using these for the mounting of the transmission. Now, granted that the cab sets up a little bit higher, but I want to make sure of a couple of things. Two things is, this is the rear mounting bracket for the cab, so I want to keep that. And because of where the drive universal is going to sit, I want to get that lower. I want to get it lower for the universal, I want to get it lower for the mounting bracket. I want to get it lower so that I might not have to modify that cab. At this point in time, I might even be able to get the radiator back up in front. So we've got to lower this front bracket. So I'm going to have to get material to fabricate another bracket in here. Then I want to start thinking about these motor mounts. I mean, I could fabricate something here's what I was thinking. I'm not sure if that's an equal bolt pattern. I might be able to turn this thing upside down and have something I don't know. Let me think about it. Again, you know, my pause is me thinking about something to do. I might not even stay with these brackets. I might just fabricate a bracket myself for the motor mounts on the let's call it the flywheel housing. So those motor mounts, we're going to have an engine mount in the front, which has got to be lowered. We're going to have the flywheel mount for the rear of the engine, and then we're going to have the mount up here for the rear of the transmission. So let me gonna leave it like this. I've got to get some measurements on what I can use to put into this frame. I really don't want to cut and modify this thing. I would rather I would kind of rather start from scratch and put something new in there, and what that new piece is going to be, again, I will take a look at that and kind of figure that out. But anyways, here is the engine back from the salvage yard, the adapter sitting in the frame.